Hello there, you legends. My name is Sam. My in-game name is King Sam on XEROS, and today I'm going to be doing a hard mode TOB guide for how to do hard mode TOB on XEROS. So this is mostly geared towards solo hard modes, and obviously if you've done TOB before, entry mode, you have an idea of what you should expect. So as you can see, my gear set up, and we're gonna get started right away. Obviously I'm doing this in max gear, so I have my blowpipe, I have my sang, and also I have a holy scythe. And we're gonna start off at the first room. And basically, some people like to spec right off the bat, but I prefer to use DDS. Also, blowpiping it at the beginning helps with poison damage, so it adds up. So with most rooms, you can actually do that. You can use the blowpipe, get some extra damage, get faster kills. I like to stand in that corner because if the blood splats hit, I can move, either way and avoid taking a lot of damage. And basically what you want to do is just try to get maximum DPS. This is our first wave of healers, which is at 70%. And basically you want to freeze them in the same way that I did. So there's a solo one right at the side. You want to freeze that, and then you want to clump them together, as you can see. Another very important tip is to try to stand under them, because when you stand under them, you get more damage, and obviously that adds up and leads to faster kills, which is what we want. And yeah, so you just make sure that, if you're using a holy scythe, to keep your prayer up above 80% to get as much damage as possible. And if you're using a sang scythe, you don't need to worry about it. If you're using a regular scythe, also, you don't have to worry about that part. So pretty easy stuff so far. Just make sure, because, if the healers heal up, it really makes it annoying because you have to use a lot of brews, use a lot of supplies, and it takes longer, so it's very important that you get the freezes off. Sometimes you'll splash, that's fine, 1 or 2 if they hit, not a big deal. Yeah, just make sure that your movement is on point and that you're attacking the boss, do as much damage as possible. Also, if you're in a team, you want to try to split it up, but focus, the main focus should also be to clump the healers in the middle, because if some get away, obviously it's going to lead to slower kills. Make sure that whenever you get your spec back, you want to be speccing with your DDS as much as possible. And there we go. The boss is complete, going for the DDS KO. And easy. All right, next room is a is the bloat room. Also not too difficult. You want to make sure that you overload before every room. Put on your salve ammi, of course, and in this room, of course, as well, you want a blowpipe. As we enter the room, the boss usually starts walking either on the right side or on the left side. And you stand in, the same position that I'm in right now on either side, depending on where the boss is when you first enter the room. So that helps a lot. Sometimes it does move in the opposite direction or whatever, but most of the time it's pretty straightforward. So you start off with dumping your specs, and of course you're just attacking it straight off the bat. Now you might freak out if you get hit by a hand like I just did, but it's no problem. You can just out-eat it, and to make sure that you're in a safe spot, away from the exact diagonal where the boss is. And yeah, just stay calm, because I see a lot of people panic when they see, the hands falling and stuff like that. And, the flies, it's, the most damage that you could take is maybe like 50, 60. So as long as your HP is quite high and you notice where the hands are falling, like don't move until you see the spots where the hands are falling, you should be fine. And the hands fall 8 times, so it's always a good idea to mentally just count, 8 times that the hands fall, and and then just be ready to hit. Sometimes you can take a bit of damage if it allows you to get an extra hit off on the boss. Usually you can do like 5 or 6 hits or something. And you should be able to do, finish off the boss within like 3 to 4 rotations if you're using a kitted scythe. Obviously in a team, it takes less time than that. Sometimes you can finish it off in just 1 rotation, 2 max. You generally want to stay above 50 HP in this room. If you know what you're doing, if you're practiced at it, but if you're not quite sure, because at this point, if it stomps and you're still there, then you'll take a lot of damage. You take 80 damage or something, and then it stacks with the flies, so it's easy to get KO'd in this room. Your specs should regen by the 3rd rotation. You should have like 2 specs or something. I usually wait until I have 2. And then that's when you can spec again, get a lot of good damage, because your DDS specs could hit 120, 126, I think is the highest that I've seen. It helps a lot in getting the kills faster. And boss is dead. Moving on to the next room. You want to put your prayer up, switch back to your torture and your DDS. And this room is tricky for a lot of first timers because of how fast it is compared to entry. But you get the hang of it. Start off with your spec, quickly switch prayers. And as you can see, with my prayers, I usually just camp for my offensive, the melee offensive, because most of your damage is, if you're in a melee setup, most of your damage is going to come from melee anyway. Hypothetically, you don't even need to switch to range or mage if you don't want to. You can just camp melee and hit hard with melee. But of course, slows down your kill time. So with blowpipe, you usually just count to 3, like 3 ticks, and then you click the ground and switch to the next attack style that you see. With blowpipe, yeah, we said 3. With Sang, it's 2, so 2 hits and then switch. And with Scythe, at first I recommend you just do 1 hit and then switch. If you're not confident, because if you do a second hit, very likely that you'll end up killing yourself because it reflects the damage. So usually 1 hit with the Scythe is enough. Once you get used to it, then you should be able to do 2 clean Scythe hits and move on to the next attack style. In a team, of course, the boss isn't focused on you as much, so it's not as maybe dangerous maybe as a solo run. And of course, you want to DDS spec as well here, as much as possible. I usually wait till I have 2 specs ready, and then spec both at the same time. Here it's also important to make sure that you keep your prayer up if you have a holy Scythe. And you may notice that when you hit your Scythe, the second hit usually maybe hits on something that is, when the boss is not in its melee form. That's fine. You have to wait till the second hit hits by itself, because it won't hit the boss unless you actually click it for the second time. So just, be aware of that. Also, there's no point in Dragon Warhammering the previous boss, because it, it has low defense already and it switches anyway, so just start off with the DDS. In this room, however, very important that you get Dragon Warhammer specs, big ones hopefully right off the start, because this boss has a lot of defense, and the harder you hit, the faster the kill will be. So make sure you keep that in mind. Use your Averneck and your defender. Use your defender, use your Dragon Warhammer or your Status Warhammer, and just spec as hard as you can. Now we're on the maze phase, and with the maze, you want to make sure that you're clicking, accurately. You can take a lot of damage fast if you don't. And you notice that you can stand on diagonals. Like, as long as it's on a diagonal line, you can move in that diagonal direction, and that also helps with speed. So if it's diagonal, you don't just go straight forward with the diagonal. Now, if you're in a team, you'll find that it hits you, with that red ball, and it bounces off and hits your teammates. Or, if it hits a teammate, then it bounces off and hits you. If it's red, make sure you play mage. If it's black, make sure you play range. Now, at this point, you might find the big red ball coming towards you. It does 75 damage, as you can see. As long as you're full HP with Torva, overbrewed, you should be fine. As you can see, I didn't even eat at that time, because I didn't need to. But then I got hit again, so of course, you have to eat. You want to stay above 75 HP with this boss. And yeah, don't panic. Once you see the red ball, don't panic. Just make sure your HP is good, and then eat if you feel you need to. Obviously, having a pet that heals you helps a lot. It is possible to do without a healing pet, but it's speeds up a lot, and you shouldn't depend too much on your pet course, you know. Your pet is, you know, just there to help you as a crutch or something. But make sure that you have your HP good, because at the end of the day, you want to complete the raid. That's your primary goal. If it takes you a bit longer, you know, that happens. Also, when you brew, your HP, you know, your stats go down, so obviously you hit lower. So make sure with every 3 sips of brew, take 1 sip of restore, and then your OVO overload will proc as well. That will help, you know, get your DPS back up. Usual stuff, we overload, we stand on those openings, have our DDS ready. In this room, of course, it's important to DDS. And the openings appear 4 times. So count them as well and be ready after the 4th to get your specs out, dump all your specs. In a team, of course, if you have more than 3 people, because, you know, max is 3 for these openings to appear on the ground. So 3 people have to stand on them. The others can just stand in a position that is good. You know, so that if the openings appear in other places, you can be ready for them. Now, don't panic with the poison splats. You just want to, you know, be calm and collected. If you know, if it hits the place where you're standing, you don't take damage unless you wait a few ticks. And of course, at 25%, you have to be very careful, because hitting it, if it looks at you, you die. You know, it's a pretty bad way to die. You know, you got this far and you die to something like that. So it's happened, you know, but it's not a good way to die. Also, big warning, do not DDS at this point, because you will die. Counts as 2 hits. So just use your scythe or your melee weapon and, you know, just stay calm. Now, it's important to stand in the position that I'm in, because it always turns towards that direction. So just stand in that area, get your hit off, click the ground so that you don't hit again in case it's looking at you. Hit, you know, easy stuff. If you're with your teammates, of course, you want to make sure that everyone doesn't hit at 25, and then everyone's in a good position to just hit, and in order for everyone to be safe. Okay, getting ready for the final boss. We want to equip our staff, where you search the skeleton, you get the staff, and then you overload. Take any necessary supplies that you need, brews of course, and restores if you need them. Turn on Mage Prayer, get your spec ready, enter the room. Now, I like to do this, you know, and I recommend anybody who's starting off to do it as well. You drop 7 brews behind this pillar, and then the second pillar also you drop 7 brews. You should be able to finish the boss within those 2 pillars. If you don't, you probably did something wrong. And if that does happen, then I recommend that you just keep hitting the boss and tanking the hits. All right, gonna get started. Spec right off the bat. 3 specs or 3 hits is recommended, but if you're not quite sure, just do 2. And also with hitting the boss, you should be able to get 2 hits off. Now the trick here is just to wait for the animation to start. Once the animation starts, that's when you hit. Also, it's even better if you do it like a tick before. So if you hit the boss just a tick before it, it's even better. There's less chance of you actually taking damage. 2 hits, have your mouse hovering over the brew and pick up the brew right away. If you do take damage, it's fine, just go back to behind the pillar, get your health up, and then go back to hitting. Of course, sip some restore so that your DPS goes up again. And you should basically be seeing the scythe pulling away, like the animation of the scythe pulling away. As you can see, you know that's when you know that your timing was right. All right, be careful of the columns. If they are completely damaged, they fall on you and you'll also take damage. So just be careful with that. All right. Now here you don't really need to pray anything. Probably better to pray range, but I just prefer to camp pray melee because in the next phase you need to have melee prayer up. If you don't, you take a lot of damage. So I just find it simpler to just keep praying melee up. If you're having trouble with this phase, I recommend you just use range, a T-bow or something, or maybe a Bofa, but in that case you'll have to take full corrupted with you as well, or crystal armor. But generally speaking, once you see the animation start, like as you can see, like the animation starts and there's like the bounce, that's when you can hit. And then you'll notice that there's an electric ball, that hit. And that's basically kind of like, I think of it like kind of like a checker. It checks if you're within range. So you have to be within those, the 2 rows of tiles that I'm standing on. Like if you look at the carpet, there's a tile there, and then you can stand in the tile right after, and then the tile right after that. So just look at the place that I'm standing in, and you want to stay in that general location. Carpet, tile, and then the tile right after. And if you do get hit back, as you can see, it's fine. You can't eat, but just try to avoid getting hit back right away again, because then you'll fall into the poison, and it's really easy to get stacked out and die. And as you can see, these monsters appear with the different colors. It's fine, just try to avoid them, And if purple ones, big purple monsters appear, then you just blowpipe them. 1 blowpipe hit is enough. Now, in the previous phase, it's important to get as much DPS as possible. In this one, you also want to focus on that. But here you can be a bit more relaxed, as you can see, because you don't have to worry about dodging the poison. Of course, don't hit the boss when it's still, because it heals it. And of course, kill the red healer balls as quickly as possible. Here you can also blowpipe the boss to get that poison damage, and also you can spec it with your Dragon Warhammer. just hit, take a step back. Obviously you can overload, but I prefer to keep my overload for the next boss so I can get my specs off on my overloaded HP. Probably be more efficient to overload, but I like to keep an extra sip of overload just in case. If you're in a team, make sure that everyone is standing in the, not too close to each other, because in this phase and the one before it can affect your teammates. So just give them room. With practice, of course, it'll get easier to know when to hit the boss. But when the electricity phase, that checker thing hits, that's basically a free hit. You have extra time to hit the boss, so that's when you should hit the most. Also, in this phase, if you end up dying, you can mage hit red healer balls. So keep that in mind. If that does happen, you can help your teammates out. And particularly if there's one person left in the raid, you're gonna have to do that, or it's gonna be quite difficult. Not impossible for them to do it on their own, but it's quite difficult. So help your teammates out. All right, in this phase, the final phase of the boss, and here you want to make sure to protect melee, get your specs off, and focus on hitting. Throughout this room, you should have your HP above 50. And of course, when there's the big green ball that hits, you want to make sure that your HP is above 75. But it's advised that you keep it above 100, because you can get stacked out with its regular hit, plus the ball can hit 110 sometimes. So you have to be very cautious of that. Make sure to avoid the webs, and people usually move towards the left. And here, once you see the red spots, make sure to click them, and sometimes if they're too far away from each other, you want to click them right the tick before the yellow orb appears on you. Otherwise, you'll take quite a lot of damage. So at this point, very important that you have your HP really high, preferably max. Thankfully, the other hit a 0, so I didn't get stacked out. Don't need to eat at this point, because remember, eating lowers your stats, slower kills. So just be cautious, know when to eat. So far, so good. Now we have the technically speaking, the last phase of the last phase, and we have these healer, winds coming towards you or whatever. Just make sure to avoid them. Once it gets to you, it will damage you and heal the boss. So just keep moving as if it's like the web phase. Move away from it. You could tank it, but that would mean that you'd have to brew up and lower your stats, and not recommended. At this point, you want to choose the spot that's furthest away from the boss and move towards it. Saves time. And you kind of have no point but to tank the whirlpool hits at this point. At this phase, when it's the whirlpool with the ball, with the green ball, sometimes I just like to stay away from the boss. And just make sure that my HP is up, because you can get stacked out with all three. If all three hit you and they hit high, there's no way you can out-eat that, because at the higher HP you have, the higher that the whirlpool hits you. So yeah, just avoid that. And there we go, boss done, easy peasy. Yeah, once you understand the mechanics of it, you'll know that it's not that hard. And congrats on finishing your first hard mode solo. And good luck with, of course, finishing the log. It's awesome mechanics, and if you understand all the mechanics and you practice a bit, it shouldn't be too hard. Yeah, we got unlucky this raid, no purple chest, but hey, that's part of it. Let's see what we get. And we got some veils, good for Sang Scythe, no problemo. And as you can see, we did it within like 29 minutes, which is not too bad. Ideally, you want to do it 25 to 28 minutes, so that if there's a Chronos planted, you have time to do 2 raids and test your luck out. And if you're dry, don't worry too much about it. It happens. I hope that this guide was useful to you. If it's your first time doing card mode, or if you're attempting your solo, this is my log completion. My last thing that I was missing was the holy kit. That is my complete log. Yes, I know I got a bit spooned with the scythes, but yeah, hope to be more spooned with the kits. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.